Ear tips are that little piece of silicone you put onto your earphone, and as surprising as it might seem, ear tips can actually change the sound quality of your earphones quite drastically. And because of this, in my earphone reviews, I'll always make sure to include a section where I'll talk about ear tip compatibility. There are a few models that are very popular right now, and one of them is the SpinFit, which is well known for its rotating head that allows the ear tip to sort of change its orientation as you insert the earphone into your ear canals. But the SpinFit that people usually refer to is the CP100 or the CP800, both of which have been out for quite a while now. In 2017, they released a line of double-flanged ear tips which seem to be less talked about than the old models. So, to find out exactly how good the new models are, I picked up some of the products from this new line while they were on discount. Welcome to Earphoneus Fanaticus, aka the Earphone Freak. In this episode, we will pit the new and old models against each other and find out whether the SpinFit TwinBlade is worth picking up. The new line of double-flanged SpinFit is actually a bit more complicated than the old single-flange model. For the original, you can either get the CP100, which should fit most earphones with normal-sized sound tube with its 4mm opening, as well as the CP800, which are designed for earphones with narrower tube at 2mm, such as most, if not all, Shure, Westone and Etymologic Research earphones. Of course, you can also get either model in different sizes to suit your needs. That's really simple and straightforward. But if you move on to the double-flanged SpinFit, now you're looking at three slightly different models. The first one is the CP220, which is designed for sound tubes that measure at around 4.4mm. They come in four sizes, which are small, medium 1, medium 2, and large. Wait, medium 1 and medium 2? What the hell does that even mean? Well, it means that the diameter of the upper flange for these two sizes are different. In particular, the M2 is slightly wider than the M1, but the lower flange is the same for both. Yeah, that's not confusing at all. Why not just call them medium and medium large? I also just want to say that for somebody who has never tried double-flanged ear tips, let alone the double-flanged SpinFit, there's no way you can tell whether the M1 or the M2 would suit you better. I mean, are we supposed to measure the inner diameter of our ear canal before purchasing? Next, you have the CP230, which is designed for earphones with wider than normal sound tubes at 5.5mm, such as Unique Melodies earphones and yeah, that's all I can think of at this moment. Unlike the CP220, the 230 only comes in medium, so if you have one of these UM earphones but you want smaller or bigger tips, I guess you could go f*** yourself. The final model is the CP240. They're designed to be fitted on earphones with slightly narrower sound tubes at 4mm only. The CP240, however, are the longest out of the three models, and there are three sizes available: small, medium, and large. Once again, why are there four sizes for the CP220, only one size for 230, and then all of a sudden, boom, three sizes for the 240? This is just really perplexing, and it makes you wonder that maybe SpinFit just went a bit scatterbrained with their size decision. Another problem I have with this whole lineup is that for something as simple as ear tips, there sure seems to be a ton of little details that regular customers have to look through before they can make the right purchase. And those details aren't clearly documented on their website. In fact, there's absolutely nothing about the SpinFit TwinBlades on their website at all. What the hell is going on? Alright, the rant is over for now. If they want to make poor business decisions, hey, I'm not gonna stop them. They probably aren't even watching this to begin with. But back to the new ear tips themselves. I actually picked up the CP220 in M1 size, as well as the CP230 in, of course, medium size, because that's the only size made. I originally intended to also get the 220 in M2 size, but those were sold out. I didn't get the 240 either because those are just too narrow for most of my earphones. Here are the boxes for the two ear tips I just mentioned, and something that immediately caught my eyes when I turned the boxes around is that for the CP240, they're quoting the sound tube sized at 4.5mm instead of 4mm reported everywhere else. It seems that even SpinFit themselves are a bit confused by their different sizes for different models, and this once again gave me the impression that they don't really know what they want to do. If the company is confused by their own goddamn products, how the hell do you expect the customers to not be confused either? Anyway, this is what the 220 and 230 look like when fitted onto an earphone. The 220 has this cool black-red colorway going on, while the 230 is the uglier brother of the two. If you care about color matching, well, good luck with the 230. Construction-wise, the 220 is quite similar to the 230. If we look at the top where sound comes out, we can see that the opening size is pretty much the same. But of course, the upper flange of the 230 is larger than the 220, but the lower flanges are the same. If we flip them upside down, we can see that there are more grooves in the tube for the 220, which might allow it to stay more securely on earphones also with these grooves on their sound tube. They can just kind of interlock with each other. In this comparison, I'll be comparing between the 220, 230 and the OG single flange SpinFit also in medium size. You might notice that my OG tip is actually grey and red, while most images you see on the interwebs should be in white and red. Don't worry, I'm not showing you fake SpinFit tips, it's just that depending on where you bought the OG tips, they will be in different colors. I think the Asian version should be grey and red, but for the rest of the world, the version you can find should be in white and red. But other than the color difference, they are identical. I've tested all three models on my flagship earphone, the Unique Melody Maverick. It is a hybrid earphone with 4 balanced armatures and 1 dynamic driver on each side. It is a large earphone with equally humongous sound tube. In theory, only the CP230 can fit, but with some stretching I managed to put the 220 and the OG tips onto this earphone. I've tried the 220 and 230 with my on-cue E900M, which I've done a review on, but I just could not get a proper seal, and pretty much only the OG can work with them flawlessly. But that's fine, because with the Maverick, I can test how different ear tips can affect a very special property that most earphones are incapable of: vertical layering. With vertical layering, sounds coming from the earphone would sound more three-dimensional, allowing different sounds to layer on top of each other rather than blending into one messy and homogeneous sound. And since the Maverick is the only earphone in my collection that's capable of doing so, I'm more than happy to test on this earphone. So how do the different ear tips stack up against each other? I'm gonna use the CP100 tips as a baseline for comparison because that's what most earphone lovers have. I think the CP100 is the warmer and more musical one out of the bunch. Because the CP100 doesn't go as deeply into our ear canal, there's more space for the lower frequencies to travel around, creating reverberations that make it sound more natural and warm. The shallower insertion also creates wider horizontal and vertical soundstage out of the three. So if you prefer a slightly more open sound quality, the CP100 is what you want. What about the SpinFit TwinBlades? I want to start with the CP230 first. With this ear tip, I think the upper mid to lower treble receives quite a significant boost, resulting in a rougher and colder sound signature. Now this could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on the earphone and your personal preference. If you think your earphone is lacking clarity in the upper mid regions, which will be the case for something like the Logitech UE900, you might want to try this one out. But if vocals coming from your earphone already stands out a lot, you will want to avoid the CP230. On my Maverick, I think the CP230 accentuates the upper mids and lower treble just a bit too much, so sounds like sh and s become harsher. Definitely not something I prefer. Besides, the deep insertion decreases reverberation in the lower registers, so the bass just doesn't sound as dynamic as with the CP100. This doesn't seem to affect the volume of sub-bass though. Another thing I noticed is that vertical layering is slightly reduced compared to the CP100, so the earphone is not as 3D sounding as before. This probably isn't something many people will notice though, because most earphones these days don't even exhibit vertical layering to begin with. Overall, if you think your earphone is lacking vocal clarity, or the bass is too boomy, you might want to give the CP230 a try. Just make sure the sound tube is wide enough to hold this ear tip, because after all, this one is designed for earphones with large sound tubes. Now moving on to the CP220, I think it's actually quite similar to the 230 except for one thing. The boost in the upper mid-range of the 230 is gone, which makes vocals less harsh sounding, but just like with the 230, this one also reduces bass and suffers from reduced vertical layering. Overall, I think the CP220 will give you a sound signature more easily acceptable than the 230. It kind of tones down the whole spectrum so we can get a sound signature that I would liken to as clear water. It's not gonna impress, but you won't hate it. I would recommend the 220 to those with boomy sounding earphones. Another factor we have to consider with each of these ear tips is comfort. If they aren't comfortable, we won't enjoy listening to our earphones as much. In this regard, I think the CP100 is more comfortable simply because of the fact that you don't need to insert that deeply, it can just kind of sit at the outer part of the ear canal and you will be fine. Whereas with the CP220 and 230, they will go way more deeply into the ear canal. Personally, I find the 230 to be the least comfortable because the upper flange is just a bit too wide for me, and the extra material irritates my ear canal. It's not a big problem if I listen to only a couple of minutes, but for long-term use it hurts a tiny bit. Now that's not something I've ever experienced with other silicone tips. The 220 though is fine, so no complaints there. But what if I don't insert as deeply as intended? Well, this brings us to the second comparison, sealing. You have to insert them all the way through, because otherwise the lower flange won't be able to seal up the outer portion of the ear canal, and you lose space that way. So no, there's no way around the discomfort. But even if you look past that, I find it a lot more difficult to get a proper seal with the twin blades. Usually I have to adjust a few times before getting a more comfortable and good seal. Whereas with the CP100 I can always do it on the first go without failure. This could be an issue if you have to take out your earphone in and out a lot. Therefore, in terms of seal and comfort, the CP100 is simply better than the 220 and 230 in my opinion. So to wrap up this comparison, is the SpinFit TwinBlade worth getting? Well, to be honest, there's no easy way to answer this. While they can definitely change the sound quality, they don't always make it better. It's just different in certain ways that may or may not make your earphones better sounding. They aren't as comfortable, and they don't seal up your ear canal as easily like the original SpinFit. Material-wise, they're still just using regular old silicone. So all in all, I don't really consider the twin blades as a direct upgrade to the originals. It's more like an addition to a hi-fi arsenal that complements the whole ear tip matching experience. If you have the originals and you are interested, feel free to pick these up. It's always fun to play around with ear tips and fine-tune your earphones. But if you don't, well, you aren't missing out. And to those who have never tried out any of the SpinFit models, I would recommend the originals just because it uses single flange design just like 90% of the ear tips out there, so you don't have to get used to them, so to speak. It's just a safer option. So that's it for this comparison. I'm happy that I picked these up for cheap so I can share my experience with you all, and I do plan on including these ear tips for the ear tip compatibility section for any of the future earphone reviews I do on the channel. Have you tried out the SpinFit TwinBlades before? If you own them or have tried them before, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. If you have any question regarding these ear tips and any earphones I have done reviews on, of course you can leave that in the comments too. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more earphone reviews and unboxing in the future. This is Earphoneus Fanaticus, and I'll see you in the next video.